Hey guys, Coaster Vortex here, and today we have our first real video. For our first real video, we are going to keep it chill with all the coasters at Six Flags St. Louis ranked. Now, before we get into it, this is my opinion, and if you want to suggest yours, type it down in the comment section below. Also, we will not be including flat rides like Fireball, Excalibur, and stuff like that, just because those are not real coasters. And with no further ado, here we go. Number 9, Ninja. When Ninja opened, it was bad from the start. It originally opened as Scream Machine at the Grand Expo of '86. Then, it was moved to Six Flags St. Louis in 1989. Ninja is a combination of an Aero and a Vekoma. This happened when Aero went bankrupt, so they sold it to Vekoma to finish the job. Also, it opened in 1989. Both of these are most likely reasons why it is rough as heck. Also, adding to the torture ride Ninja is, the headrest feels like they're hard as rock when your head is banging against them. But, if you're home park at Six Flags St. Louis, and you've ridden it a couple of times, you've probably grown accustomed to it. Also, as with most rides, it's a whole lot better at night. This could have been a great Aero looper, but it was just made at the wrong time. Number 8, Pandemonium. This ride is not really a bad ride, but it's not a good ride either. I've only rode this a couple of times, as whenever I go to Six Flags St. Louis, I usually don't get around to it, as it's either not running or because there's too long of a line. I really don't get the hype for this ride, even though it's a Gerstlauer, it has a boring layout, and it's just not that fun to ride. Number 7, Boomerang. Now, Boomerang is placed here for most of the same reasons Pandemonium was. It's not that bad of a ride, as it's fun to ride every once in a while, but you don't go to Six Flags St. Louis to ride it. Again, when I go to Six Flags, I usually don't ride it, as most of the time it's closed due to the derailing in 2016, but when it is open, it's just not worth the wait, as you can ride it at almost all theme parks. And even though it has a decent layout, it's been duplicated too many times to call it a good and unique layout. Number 6, River King Mine Train. One of the only reasons this is up here this far is for nostalgic reasons. As for most of you at the home park of Six Flags St. Louis, this is most likely your first roller coaster. Now, looking back on it, the River King Mine Train has a decent layout, with the highlight coming at the end with the drop, but this does deserve this spot on the list. It also gives you a not too intense ride for the little ones, and a nice ride through the woods. Number 5, Screamin' Eagle. This ride is a classic, dating all the way back to 1976. When on it, you may think about how rough it is, since you're most likely in the middle to back row, as it has a decent wait time during the day. And yes, even though it is a rough and jolty ride, fantastic flow to air time for a 43-year-old coaster. Also, as I mentioned before, if you're in the middle to back row, you're going to get a much rougher experience than riding in the front row. So, I suggest waiting that extra 5 to 10 minutes for a front row ride. And, it gives an amazing night ride, arguably the best in the park. So, your ideal ride on Screamin' Eagle is a front row ride at 6 to 9 o'clock at night. Number 4, The Boss. This might be slightly controversial, as some people say it's the best ride in the park, and some say it's the worst. I say it's neither. While it can be rough at times, I think it's a coaster with semi-good airtime, along a decent layout, with some force. As it's the longest ride in the park, it has multiple drops and multiple good airtime moments. So, The Boss isn't the amazing coaster some people make it out to be, but it's not the horrible coaster some people make it out to be either. And, there is speculation of an RMC treatment sometime in the future, which could be really good, but I'll go more in depth with that in another video. Number 3, Batman the Ride. Starting off our really good coasters in the top 3 is Batman. Batman, even though cloned almost as much as Boomerang, is an amazing ride nonetheless. Growing up, this was always the scariest roller coaster for me. Finally, I got over my fear and rode it. I was blown away by how smooth and elegant it was, from the inversions to the turns, and even the first drop. If you haven't ridden this one, or even another clone at a different park, I highly suggest it. It's one of the best B&Ms I have ever ridden, and an overall great coaster. And there's a surprising amount of force on this ride as well. When you're going around those turns, you might gray out if you haven't ridden a B&M before. Number 2, Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast. This is probably the best launch coaster I've been on, as I haven't been on that many. When you start the ride, you get launched 70 miles per hour backwards into the layout. Then you go over an amazing inverted top hat, then into a bank turn. Then most likely the most raved about aspect of the ride is the straight up track. Then you fall, feeling like you're going to derail, which makes it even better, heading back into the bank turn, then the inverted top hat. As you're going through the top hat, you get some amazing hang time before you get thrusted back into the station, making the ride time 1 minute and 30 seconds. Overall, this is a great ride, and I suggest you riding it at some point at Six Flags St. Louis, or at Six Flags over Texas, as they have a clone there. Number 1, American Thunder. This GCI Woody is an amazing ride. The first drop is great. You get a lot of ejector airtime and force, and it's close to the ground most of the time, and has tons of tight and forceful turns. As Screamin' Eagle is more of a front row ride because of its floater airtime, definitely a back row ride, as sitting in the front won't make much of a difference. This coaster has barely any roughness and makes for a very enjoyable ride. Even though it is forceful at times, it doesn't give you a headache or any discomfort. It is usually the first ride I go on every time I'm at the park, and I usually end up riding around 3 or 4 times every park visit. You can also marathon without any discomfort as many times as you'd like. Overall, this is a great wooden coaster and probably the best in Missouri. And that was my ranking of all the coasters at Six Flags St. Louis. If I missed anything, or you want to let me know your list, write it down in the comment section below. Stay tuned for more videos, probably weekly, and I hope you'll consider subscribing. Thanks, see you next time.